positive light. You come from a place of love. But who gives to you and who believes you in this world of black and white? It doesn't matter. Plant the seed, let God take over when you can't see.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Ralf Friedrichs. I'm the Addiction Recovery Coach and your host of the Take Your Life Back Today show. This particular show addresses a very sad situation. I have a friend whose brother overdosed, and it makes me really sad because he was a terrific person. He had a beautiful soul. VERDEROSA, a.k.a. Shorty, unfortunately is no longer with us. He faced the demons of addiction over and over, as many as us have in our lives. Fortunately, some of us have learned to live in recovery. Unfortunately, VERDEROSA is no longer with us because of that evil drugs that took his life. I want to, before I get into his sister giving us about a 7-minute little, I guess you could call it like a blog or a little story about GERARD, I want to just talk about Narcan, the compass to healing, or is it a crutch in addiction? Claiming the lives of 47,000 Americans each and every year, fatal drug overdoses have skyrocketed in the past 3 decades throughout the U.S. and even the world. Opiates like prescription painkillers and heroin are claiming the lion's share of lives lost, killing more than 28,000 Americans per year, 78 people per day. So what is Narcan? Naxalone, more commonly known as the brand name Narcan, is an opiate antidote that reverses opiate overdoses. It is regularly carried by medical first responders and can be administered by ordinary citizens like you and I, with a little and no formal training. In nasal spray form, Narcan is available to the public with or without prescription. In its nasal spray, it carries right around the hip. Folks, an injectable form of Naxalone, otherwise known as Narcan, to the public with or without prescription can be used by first responders and people like you and me. An injectable form of Narcan is first used by the responders as soon as they come on scene and they notice that somebody might be overdosing on oxycodone and deadly opiates like fentanyl or even heroin. When someone overdoses on these drugs, their breathing slows to dangerous levels and fall below a certain level and may even fall to unconscious and come very close to death. Injected or sprayed up the nose, Naxalone works rapidly to stop an overdose in its tracks by blocking the effects that opiates have on the brain receptors. It is a vicious cycle, my friends. Unlike the buprenorphine-containing cousin Sapsicon, another opiate antigenus or an antidote, Narcan has no abuse potential and cannot be used to get high. Conversely, receiving a dose of the life-saving drug plunges addicts into immediate, and I repeat, an immediate overwhelmed withdrawal symptoms. You vomit, you get diarrhea, you sweat profusely, your nose will even run. You sneeze and have runny eyes, and you ache so bad that you can't even walk. Narcan saves lives. I promise you that. It saves lives. The heartbreaking life and death and back again cycle is all too familiar to so many people, especially in the emergency medical services. First responders and firefighters who carry Narcan call it a lifesaver. But it's no cure for the heroin epidemic within this country or anywhere in the world. An increasing number of states are advocating the Narcan use is a key component in overdosing prevention, but not everyone thinks so. Creating a situation where an addict has a heroin needle in one hand and a shot of Narcan in the other produces a sense of normalcy and security around heroin use that serves only to perpetuate the cycle of addiction. Proponents for stricter Narcan laws also point to the inherently dangerous situations EMS staff find themselves when administering the drug to the potential overdose victim. Because Narcan causes acute withdrawal symptoms, a handful of treated patients awake aggressively and violently. Deputy Chief John Everett of the Portland's Main Fire District and Fire Department knows the viciousness firsthand. They usually are very angry when we bring them around. He noted, "One kid yelled at me, 'You think this will make me stop doing drugs?' he yelled at him. I said, 'No, the only thing I want to make sure is that you don't die here today.'" Narcan, the drug of second chances. Is it a second chance, or is it a crutch that so many addicted people use? On one hand, it can be a lifesaver. On the other hand, it can be a crutch. To fight overwhelmingly, we cannot just have addicted people think that Narcan is a crutch for them. We cannot save a dead person, that I will tell you. So Narcan is very important for us to utilize, because we can't save that person. Every life saved with Narcan is an opportunity for a person suffering from the disease of addiction to reclaim their life. And a second shot of life is exactly what Narcan gives those who want to change their lives altogether. Folks, how the Recovery Village can help, how you and I can help people that are suffering. Don't have a relative, don't have a person that is at the end of their rope. Depend on Narcan, knowing that they can go all the way, knowing that they'll be safe to you. Do not let them use Narcan as a crutch. The opiate epidemic continues hand in hand with the Narcan debate throughout the United States. For those seeking an escape through substance use, the answer to lasting peace isn't more pills. Of course not. It's an honest and diligent pursuit of sobriety. Sobriety that I have found, and so many millions of other people have found. Unfortunately, there are some people that have not found that, and that's a very sad thing. I want to play a certain clip that I had received from Gerard's sister, and let me get that out right now for you. I need to upload it here real quick. But keep in mind, Narcan, compass to healing or a crutch to addiction. You make that decision, folks. Let me get her. It's right over here. I am back here now. I'm going to put Gerard's sister on right now. I'm going to walk away to give you a view of the pool in the background while I do this. Stay tuned.
So, this memo is about my brother Gerard, my baby brother Gerard, a.k.a. Shorty. We called him Shorty because he was the youngest of mine. My brother Alphonse, who has since passed more than 10 years ago, nicknamed him that because he was the little runt of the crew, the little runt of the litter. And anywhere my older brothers went, he just wanted to follow along. So my brother would say, "All right, come on, Short, let's go." Or, "No, Short, you can't come this way because we're doing adult things when you're too young." But since he was a kid, I remember him always trying to fit in. And whatever they were doing, he wanted to do. He wanted to tag along. And he did, and he tried. He was a good kid. He was a little bit rough growing up. He was hyper. And he would do a little bit of things for, to get attention. And when he was very young, from what I understand, he had some seizures. I do remember him having a seizure and having to be brought to the hospital. And I know there was talk in the family of how, since that had happened, he wasn't always right after that. He had some health problems and some emotional problems. My parents were 16 years apart. My mom married very young. My dad drank, and he was a functional alcoholic. He worked. There was a chaos in the family. It was a big Italian family, so, in one breath they would be hugging each other, another breath throwing a meatball at each other. There was always tension, worrying about this and that, but we never starved. My dad always made sure we had food, and my mom always kept the house clean. My mom was a young mom, raising young ones. It was rough on her. So it wasn't always that huggy-kissy type family, but there was love. Lots of anxiety, lots of stress. Sometimes Dad would come home drinking, everybody would run for the hills, and he never hit me, he never hit us, but he had a firm hand. I know Gerard always felt like he was always left out. He'd talk about it often, like, nobody cares about me, I'm the black sheep of the family. He got thrown out quite often because he would cause a lot of chaos in the house, and he'd have to leave. Sometimes it would be by his drinking, sometimes it would just be by him getting in trouble with the police, little stupid teenage things that he did, which eventually led to other things as he got older. He did some hard time in jail. We used to tease him because he was known to take vehicles that were running in front of 7-Eleven, and he did some time for that. He spent most of his life in and out of facilities. I do know one thing, though, that he did always want to be happy, and he struggled with that. He struggled with himself. He struggled with his happiness. He dated a young woman then, back from our town, and he had a child with her. Handsome young man. Now he's in his 30s, and he has a child himself. So Shorty had a granddaughter who he was dying to see. Never got to see her. Did get pictures and whatnot because they had moved to Florida many years back, and his son became a naval officer, decorated naval officer, who he's so proud of. And I know he talked often about how he just wanted to see his granddaughter, and he had never gotten that chance to. It's very hard for me to do this. The last several years were really rough. He was in and out of facilities and out of hospital. He spent some time in a coma-like state. They had to induce a coma to bring him off some drugs he had taken. He tried several suicide attempts. He had very, very, very ups and very, very downs. That was the bipolar that he was diagnosed with several years back. They placed him on medication for that, because I believe he had these issues since he was very young, but back then they didn't really diagnose anyone. It was just, everything was in a mixed bag. He did have some trouble in school. It was a rough ride for him. He lived with us most recently. He tried very hard to be a strong person. I talked often about he couldn't take the racing thoughts that he would have in his head. He just couldn't stop them. And he was on several different medications for bipolar and depression and anxiety. He just had a rough time with trying to get his thoughts in control. He battled a lot of demons. And there were many times in which he wouldn't take his medication. He would decide to go out and do street drugs or alcohol. In some way he felt that would soothe him, and it would just create another monster. And he just had no control over it. And most recently, on August 26th, I decided to take all of his psych medications. I found him lying lifeless in his bed. They tried to revive him, but it didn't happen. And this time, out of the many suicide attempts, he had succeeded. I want to honor his memory. I want to say that he was very loved. He was a good man. He took care of himself, his hygiene, sometimes to a fault where it was almost OCD. He loved to dress in suits. He loved wearing his suits. We used to tease him because Shorty would wear a suit to a barbecue. And he would say, "How do I look?" And I'd be like, "You look great, Short." And he'd be like, "I'm a bad motherfucker, aren't I?" I'm like, "Yeah, Short, you're bad." And he was. He looked good. He was a handsome, handsome man. He sure was. And there were times when he felt he was, and times when he felt he just was shit. And that he wasn't. But there was nothing that I could do or anyone else could do to convince him that he was a good man and a good-looking man. I love you, Shorty. I will always love you. I will always honor your memory because you were a somebody and you are a somebody. If the heavens could speak now, they would open up and they would say, "We have him now. We have this great man named GERARD R. VERDEROSA. Shorty. We have him. He's in our arms, and he shines his beautiful presence upon us all. We don't have him here anymore, but heaven has him, and his life, it does go on, in a different way, but it goes on. I love you, brother. Until we meet again.
Well, if that wasn't touching, I don't know what is. Folks, when people overdose, a lot of times they do it purposely. Because like GERARD, Shorty, he couldn't take the pain inside. He just couldn't take the demons, the thoughts. And his way of dealing with it was the way he dealt with it. Yes, Narcan can help people, revive people, but it cannot be a crutch for addiction. When we mix drugs, you mix booze, and you mix mental illness sometimes, only terrible things can happen. GERARD, VERDEROSA, we miss you, aka Shorty, we miss you. I can only feel for his sister, because he truly was a beautiful soul. I didn't even know him directly, but I do believe his sister said that he was. Every once in a while she tried to get him to watch my show. Whether he did or not, I'm not sure exactly. I think she said he did a couple times. But if I can just touch 1 out of 1,000,000 people, just one GERARD out there, if I could save, my mission has been accomplished. For GERARD is a beautiful soul, and there are millions like GERARD out there. There are millions of people out there that are suffering from addiction and mental illness. And instead of just taking drugs over and over, they take it all at once to end their pain. We, together, as a society, need to fight. We need to not incarcerate people that are doing drugs and alcohol. What we need to do is give them the tools to find a way to live in recovery. Folks, as many of you have known, I've been working on a book now for about 3/4 of a year. It's due to be published by a Christian publishing company sometime next year. And the name of my book is Bottoms Up, Surrendering to God, Not to Booze. Bottoms up, surrendering to God, not to booze. All the rehab in the world can help people, but it is God who will teach me, has taught me, will teach you how to live in recovery. Together, you and I, we need to learn to fight and help people, no matter where they are. We need to fight and help. I hope to God that wherever you're watching me, that you come together to help fight, save the GERARDs in society. If you see someone that is telling you that they're having voices in their head and they're feeling hate in their head or hateful thoughts in their head and they just want to end it, don't sweep it under the rug. You need to help them. You need to help them. And if you hear about people that are being incarcerated due to alcoholism and drug addiction, we need to give them the tools to learn to live in recovery. The tools require our society, our people, us, God's children, to come together to help the GERARDs of the world. Stay tuned for a little collage that I'm going to make for GERARD in honor of him. Shorty, we will miss you forever. And I hope while you're in heaven and you're sitting next to God that you found a peace that you couldn't find here on earth. And may God bless you, GERARD, and all your family and everyone in my audience. May God bless you.
You should know out of everybody, you are really never alone. You should know out of everybody, you are loved, you have a beautiful soul. Even in the dead of silence, you are being blessed by what you hear. You should know out of everybody, you should know out of everybody, you are a beautiful soul. You are a beautiful soul. You don't ask for anything in return, yet sometimes you get burned. You pick yourself up, cleanse your soul of the dust. You live your life with love. When people take from you, mislead, misunderstand you, you never give up. And that's what matters. Plant the seed, let God take over when you're down on your knees. 'Cause you should know out of everybody, there are signs in front or behind you. You should know out of everybody.